Welcome back to Resolve Essentials number 2. I'm going to show you some view options in your source monitor, go over some stacked timelines, some edit functions with keyboard preferences, and how you can set those preferences up. So let's jump in. So I showed you last week your source and timeline viewer. If you drop a source in here, you can preview it before adding it into your timeline. And then you have your viewer on the right here that is your timeline. So if you want to do the 3-point editing thing, you throw it in here. And another handy feature that you get is previewing the audio. If I add this clip into here, you can see I got a green waveform, much like if I was to add this clip down to the timeline, you get a running waveform. Now there's a few different view options. You can show full clip waveform, and that's going to show you essentially your full zoomed out view. And then on the 3-dot menu, you have show zoomed audio waveform. Now this is good if you have lines of dialogue. You can see where the gaps are visually while you're playing. So if we were to jog back here and get the end of this line, you could use that to mark your in and out point and then do the 3-point editing that way. I find it pretty handy of a feature to be able to see the waveform up inside this preview window. Now another feature I wanted to show you guys was stacked timelines. If we look at our project up here, we could see this one's called Resolve Essentials. And right here, there's a little drop down that says Timeline 1. If we click the arrow, there's a second timeline, and we could choose that here. And now you can see this timeline switches over to one titled Tennessee. And if we go over to our smart bins here and click on timelines, you can see Tennessee now has a red check mark. And then timeline 1 is in here. If we wanted to double click it, that would now load. Now I happen to have stacked timelines on by default, but let me show you a couple of the options and how you can get to it. So below your on-screen controls here is this little check box called Timeline View Options. And if you select it, you have your options under here, which does some other features like track height and audio, and a couple of waveform displays, fixed playhead, a background viewer, and a thumbnail preview on your clips on the timeline. But what I wanted to show you guys was the stacked timelines feature for now. If it's off, you'll see the timeline kind of adjusted right here. And if we look right here under our volume controls, when I turn it back on, you can see we get this little box right here in the corner. You also get these tabs right here. So if these are off, you don't see the tab. This is your default view in Resolve. So you can see we're on timeline 1 here, and then there's no other indicators for you right here. But with stacked timelines on, you get these little like bookmark tabs. So you could move these around if you wanted to and put them in order. And if you have more timelines, you can just keep adding them like this. So you'll get a little select timeline drop down, and then you could choose from your list right here. You can work from one timeline, like let's say this is your main edit, and the second timeline happens to be a bunch of stills in this case. But if you had B-roll, iPhone footage, whatever it happens to be, you could lay all that out from your media bin. So if we had this main Tennessee folder here with all of our video footage, we could make a secondary timeline with just the stills. And then how you can use stacked timelines is to bounce back and forth between the two. So there's 3 ways you could do that. One is like we're showing here, where you actually click between the two, or you can have that tab closed down and use your drop down arrow and go between the two. What I like to do is the actual stacked timeline. So you can see here we've got 2 audio tracks and a few video layers. Let's go back to where we were near the mixer, where this little box with the plus sign appeared when we chose stacked timelines. So I'm going to hit that. And now you can see we've got a secondary timeline down here, and it's prompting us which timeline do we want to view. So on the main timeline, I will choose timeline 1. And on this secondary, I will choose Tennessee. And then you can move this splitter right above your taskbar controls if you needed some more room. And these are both independently controllable if you needed to scale up your video or your audio, depending on what you're doing. So now you could actually choose clips from your second timeline and hit Command C, and without changing screens, head back up to your main timeline, go to the end and paste in those clips. So this is fantastic if you're working between various footage and you need to bounce back and forth and you're looking to trim your edit down. You can just bounce back and forth like this, and then it'll show you whichever timeline you're on will basically highlight. Now the playhead stays red. It's kind of a little bit of a bug, but I have a focus indicator. If you could see this red line going across, if I click up here, we get a red line. And this is a user focus indication. All right, to get to that menu, you go to Resolve Preferences. Under UI Settings, under User, it's the second, Show Focus Indicators in the User Interface. So when you choose that, wherever you click, you'll get this little red line. So if I'm over here in the media pool, that turns red. So to get rid of your double stacked timelines, so I hit this little X, and now we're down to a single timeline again. That's how I use stacked timelines. Obviously, if you have more timelines, you could fan them out over here. But now let's get into the keyboard preference shortcuts. So let's talk about editing with your keyboard and your shortcut tools. Under your monitor here, in your taskbar, you'll have the arrow tool, which is A is the shortcut. You'll have your trim tool, which is T, your dynamic trim, which is W for slips, B for blade. You can use hotkeys here. If you hit B, you can see our cursor changes to a blade. If we hit A, it's arrow for the selector. Depending on what you're doing, if you're moving things around or copying it, things like that, you'll get used to those shortcuts. Some of the most basic features you're going to do is cutting and trimming. We're between two clips here, and let's say we wanted to cut this second logo short. Normally you'd hit B for blade, cut it wherever you wanted to, and then you could trim it. But I have mine set up as shortcuts. So if I hit the number 2, as you can see, it does a cut for me. And let's say I wanted to remove everything to the left of this playhead on this clip. I can just hit 3, and you can see my timeline ripples as well. Or if I'm here and I want to move everything from the right of the playhead, I can hit 1. So let me show you how I set those up. Under the main Resolve dropdown, you get Keyboard Customization or Command Option K. And this brings up your keyboard. There's a lot of functionality in here. You can search for a setting. So if you wanted to look up blade, it'll search all the functions and it says trim, blade edit mode is the letter B. You can just type it in. And then they have the various functions down here, file. So if you were to go to file, there's all these functions down here. So you could see export project and a bunch of other ones. So the ones I made custom, and if you're ever curious if something's already taken, like if you hit spacebar, that's going to tell you that's pause and playback. Same with the L key, and the J is play reverse, and your stop key. So you can kind of get to learn some of the shortcuts until you have them memorized. So if you want to hit Command X, that's letting you know that's a cut, or Command C, that's letting you know that's a copy. So what I did was these keys up here, this tilde key, I made that the undo, which I think is the default. Then 1 is not only if I'm working with multicam, it's cut to angle 1. So all these keys are your cut to angle keys. So I left those intact, so those functions are still there if I'm up in the multicam viewer. But in addition, I added end to playhead, and then for 2, I put razor, and for 3, start to playhead, and those are those functions I just showed you. So now if I'm looking to trim something, I can just hit the cut, or if I want to pull all this front out, let's say we wanted to remove this logo here, I would fast forward, I would hit 3. Now my clip starts in black and goes straight into here. So let's get into a few more edit functions here. There's ways your timeline will edit depending on your cursor. So let's isolate this title here. So if I wanted to make a cut here, I would hit 2. Now all these are basically dependent on your track selector, which is this little bracket arrow right here. And if we get rid of our media pool and I show you the index, see how it says track controls right here in the upper left? This is whether or not a track is going to do something. So now that those are off, if I hit 2, it doesn't know where I want these cuts. So if I'm just trying to isolate this video 1 track, I would choose that track selector, or you can choose it here. And now I can make cuts in the video and not the audio. Well, it will because it's linked in this case. But if we took the link off, you can see now I can make just video cuts, and that's selected. So here is our video cuts only. because we don't have any other track selectors chosen. So now let me show you another function of how you can trim your edits and roll them and do some internal trimming as well. So these are not obvious, like if you went to the edit here and chose any of these F keys. These are all for taking a source and putting it down on the timeline, but we have a few other options that are very handy. Like if you want to switch these clips here, I'll turn my linking back on. Let's say we wanted this clip here after this clip on the right. We can choose it. We hit Command Shift period, and if we go to the end, you could see our clip just moved all the way down here to the end. And if we want to go back, it'd be Command Shift comma. So that's pretty great for swapping clips. It'd probably make more sense to show you here. So let's move these two nighttime shots. We'll move this one before this middle clip of the road with the sun. So we grab that clip and we go Command Shift comma, and now we've reordered these clips. Now another thing with the track selector, if you don't have this enabled, it won't stop on your cuts when you use your up and down arrow keys. So if we shut that off and I hit up, it just goes to the start of the timeline. If I hit down arrow, it goes to the end, and vice versa with the audio. So if we had cuts in the audio that were separate from our video and we wanted to stop on it, kind of like this, it wouldn't stop on that cut without this selector being enabled. And you have to pay attention to that too when you're trimming your clips. It could have a problem if you have these two off and your link is selected, but you go to trim this. Now the link's working, but if you had your link off and you were further down in your timeline and you trimmed just this video, you could get your clips out of sync, which is what these little red marks are. Resolve knows that these two audio tracks and this video clip should be starting the same, but now that I've moved it independently, which I hit the Option key to choose independent clips, it's now showing me an out of sync indicator. So you could actually align it. You could say slip others into place with a right click or move others into place. So it just depends on what you need to do. So now they're aligned again, and this knows I need to trim it to there to match it back up. Now, see this little green indicator on the edge of the clip. Let me move this clip down a little bit, and we'll zoom in to the edge of this clip here. Now, how you can select this is as soon as you hover over the edge of a clip and click it, it's going to turn green. So now let's look at this audio right here. If I hit comma, it's trimming it one frame at a time backwards. If you hit period, it's trimming one frame at a time forwards. So this is great for fine-tuning your edit, like if we wanted to trim this clip to start here. Now you can watch your cursor change, whether it's going to be a roller like this, so it's a bracket with a little icon there and an arrow, versus here we have two brackets with opposing arrows, and that's going to trim adjacent clips. So let me add a clip right next to it again. We'll delete this gap by choosing this gray area here and right clicking and hitting backspace or delete. Now because my clips aren't selected, you could see my audio and my video got out of sync there. So now that I highlight those three, now that butted that up. Now if we choose this bracket edit, you could see we're trimming this clip on the right back and we're eating into the clip on the left or the A side of the edit. So it depends on what part you're looking for. And this might make sense if you have two different clips. So let me find that in a scene here. We'll get between two cuts. So here's the cut of Michael J. Fox, and then it cuts to restaurant owner's camera. So if we had these two here and we start rolling it, see how your display shows you the A and the B side of the cut? It only does that when you select that edit like that and then start to move. So that way you could fix the on-screen action to the exact frame you're looking for. This is very handy. And then if you want to just trim the one clip, you can see how the icon changes, and now we're trimming back just that clip, and vice versa with this side. And then if you had handles and we're in trim mode, so we switch over to this secondary edit, you see how our icon changes. Now it's going to leave this cut right here, but move this clip while the cut remains. So see how that image is changing? And now this is actually showing you, before we had the clip of the restaurant owner here like that. But then if we use this particular icon, so not this one with the brackets, but this one with the brackets on the outside is your slip edit. So now we could fine tune exactly what we're looking for. So the upper quadrant, which is kind of hard to show you at the same time, is where the credit is. That's the start of the clip. And the secondary quadrant on the upper right is the frame right here. And then the bottom right is the first frame of this clip. You'll get to know that as you start moving around, but try this type of edit out. So if you're trying to get like a scene to cut, let me just do another cut here and we'll move this around. So let's say right now we're going from the shot of him leaving, and let's say we'll get the next cut and delete it. So here should be a cut, yeah. So we'll cut to him right out to the neighborhood shot. Let me just go back here. So let's say we wanted to take out this scene. So I'll hit 2 and we'll zoom in, and I'm going to get rid of this scene by selecting it and hitting backspace or delete, but actually you should be hitting shift delete. So I'll choose it, shift delete. See how my timeline rippled back and closed that gap? So that's a different kind of delete. So if you just grab it and hit delete, that just gets rid of the clip but leaves your timing. But if you want to omit this clip and shift everything over, it's called a ripple edit. So shift delete, now that closed the gap for me. So now if we're looking here, we want to cut back to the inside of the restaurant. Say we're going to get rid of all these clips in between here. So you could travel back here and pick this part of the scene right over here. But here's what I was talking about. The B side of this cut is the start of this neighborhood shot. And now we can leave this alone, go to trim mode with our T key and change our icon. And now this might make a little more sense. You can see the bottom right is our shot of the neighborhood. And then the very next clip is our active next frame. So if we wanted to roll back, we're going to go all the way back to the restaurant before this scene. And I'm just sliding my trackpad, or you can click and drag with your mouse. So let's go there. So now this is going to be him approaching the door as this character is leaving. And then cuts right there where we asked it to. So this is a great way to get the action timed correctly. Let's say you wanted it more as the camera's panning. I can just stop it there. And now we roll back. I'm going to hit the /, and that previews your edit. It actually went to the wrong edit, but here we go. Preview. So I didn't even like that. I want to stop it maybe here. And there we go. So those are some edit functions based on what your cursor is doing when you're over a piece of media. So all right, those are some basic editing functions so you can get to know what this looks like as you're down in here with your cursor. See that these things move depending on the side of the edit you're on, or if you want to just switch the cut here. A lot of good functionality. And this is all done without even changing our trim mode. You can change trim depending on what you're going to do. I use my speed editor, so when I choose this trim, I can actually trim the out point of this cut by holding a trim out. And then it kind of does this thing where I was showing you the before and after picture here. And it's telling me how many frames I'm trimming. And that's good to pay attention to as well. If you're like, I need to trim 3 frames, you can watch this little display here. It tells you how much trimming you're doing. I will mostly bounce back and forth between the A arrow selector in case I got to move something around or pull a graphic up or whatever this might be. By the way, you can grab a clip and hit Option and drag it, and that's a copy. And then I'm switching between the arrow key and the T, so A and T, and then I just pay attention to what my cursor is doing. All right, so that's it for Essentials number 2. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment if there's something that you want to see me cover in future episodes. Leave it, and I'll read the comments, and I'll be sure to throw that in on another video. So I'll talk to you guys on the next video.